On a tomb wall, leopards guard a feast. Rome learned from these hands. So why did their makers vanish into near silence? North of Rome, ridges break the Tuscan sky. Here lay Etruria, a web of hill towns and ports. Between the 8th and the 1st centuries BCE, it thrived. Stone chambers cut into tufa open like stage sets, banquets, dancers, and games still move in paint. Bronze mirrors shine with gods and long hair. Cities rise on plateaus swept by sea winds. Veii faces Rome across a ravine. Tarquinia looks outward to trade routes. Servitor spreads its tumuli like a low stone forest. Populonia turns iron ore into wealth. Vulcae sends ships across a crowded sea. Their words lie on clay, bronze, and linen. Short lines name the dead, the donor, the god. Longer texts whisper of borders and rights. But their story comes through foreign voices. Greeks call them Tyrrhenians and argue on roots. Romans praise and blame, then fold them into law. Archaeology fills the silence with tools and walls. Orthogonal streets cross under a planned sky. Drains cut deep carry the rains to safety. This is a land of makers and diviners. Of scarlet-edged togas and fierce processions. Of engineers who channel water and time. Yet a riddle hangs over it all. Origins clash, the tongue resists, and the end blurs. The past hears vivid mute at once. Follow the trail from urns to city grids. Watch a people rise by craft and trade. Hear how their rites shape Roman faith. We will weigh two ancient claims on their birth, a migrant tale from Anatolia, an autochthonous line from local ground. We will step inside their words, into 13,000 inscriptions that we can read, yet not feel, into rare long texts that bind land and God. We will see iron smelted, streets aligned, and drains laid. We will face sea defeat, siege, and treaty, and we will test a quiet thought. Maybe they did not vanish at all. Maybe they learned to speak with Rome, and lived on. The oldest layer is called Vilanovan. It fills the 9th and 8th centuries BCE. Ash lies in biconical urns under low mounds. Iron blades and fibulae share the soil. Hearths and huts stand on windswept spurs. The same hills will host Etruscan walls. Archaeologists trace a steady change. Vilanovan shapes lean into Etruscan form. Continuity maps across the very ground. Scholars read this as a local growth, an evolution, not a clean replacement. The land keeps its people, and its people refine. Then new light pours in from the east. The Orientalism wave breaks in the late 8th. Goods and ideas arrive with Greek and Phoenician ties. Goldwork gains granulation and fine filigree. Turs burnish black bucero to a wet shine. Ship timbers creak at the mouths of rivers. Writing is adopted from a Greek hand. Letters bend to fit an older soundscape. They carve names on cups, idols, and stone. City life tightens and expands. Veii, Cerveteri, Tarquinia, Vulcae, Populonia bloom. A league of 12 cities is later recalled. Livy mentions that confederation. Its frame and function are still debated, but the sense of linked city-states holds. Temples rise on deep podia with bold fronts. Vitruvius, later, will sketch their rules. At Veii, Portonaccio yields glazed terracottas. And Apollo strides there, polychrome and poise. The hand is linked to a master called Vulca. Clay moves like muscle under fresh color. The early system is set. A people crafts a voice in shrine and street, but another voice writes their tale for them. Greeks and Romans become our narrators. And their lenses blur as much as they focus. The stage is set for friction in the record. Two ancient stories try to fix their start. Herodotus tells of hunger in Lydia. He sends a band west under a leader named Tyrrhenos. They land, he says, in Italy and become Tyrrhenians. It is a clear tale with a single road. It pulls the eye east and over the sea. Dionysius of Halicarnassus refuses that arc. He claims the Etruscans are native to Italy. He leans on custom, tongue, and old soil. Archaeology bends closer to Dionysius here. Vilanovan to Etruscan looks like one long climb. No break in places, graves, or toolkits. Recent genetics add a quiet thread. They suggest continuity from Neolithic roots, not a clean sweep by a new incoming mass. Yet the sea leaves marks on craft and taste. Oriental goods flow through Etruscan halls. Local growth meets wide exchange. and both matter. Now step into the plan of a town. Marzaboto lays streets at right angles. This is the 6th century BCE under open sky. Stone channels run under those streets. Water is tamed, pooled, and drawn away. Blocks align, and public space takes shape. Rissell, Bay. Other sites echo that order. Orthogonal thinking spreads in central Italy. Rome will later make it its own craft. In the north, smoke drifts from kilns and forges. Populonia stokes iron from Elba and hills. Bronze workshops hammer cists and mirrors. Mirrors carry near 3,000 etched stories. Gods, weddings, and heroes flash in silvered lines. Their luxury, gift, and altar in one. Trade maps link Etruscan ports to Greece. Attic vases ride home in elite graves. Wealth shows in gold granules and wide banquets. Walk into a tomb at Tarquinia. Leopards perch above a painted feast. Dancers step with hair curling in air. At Cerveteri, spouses hold an eternal pose. The terracotta sarcophagus shows warm smiles. It dates to the end of the 6th century BCE. Now listen for their own voice in text. We count about 13000 inscriptions today. Most are short. A name, a gift, a farewell. But a few long texts open a larger door. The Liber Lintius from Zagreb is linen. It preserves ritual days and sacred order. The Tabula Cordonensis is a bronze sheet. It records a land deal with care and clauses. Names, witnesses, and duties fill its fields. The Sippo Perugino shows two tongues. Etruscan stands beside Latin on a border law. It anchors sounds and helps decode forms. From these we grasp grammar and shape. Syllables, endings, and case fall into place. Yet full meaning stays just out of reach. We can read how to say a name, but not always what a sentence truly feels. Semantics slide on an island tongue. Helmut Rix studied a stone on Lemnos. Its script and forms looked kindred to Etruscan. The link hints at older Aegean threads. Still, the big code remains only half open. Scholars map verbs, particles, and kin terms, but a native prose that tells itself is lost. This is where the mirror bends again. Greek and Latin authors fill the gap. They praise the craft, then shade the morals. Livy writes of Etruscan kings in Rome. Tarquin the Elder and the Proud take the stage. He lists rites, symbols, and regal pomp. Cicero points to diviners from Etruria. He debates if birds and entrails tell truth, yet he shows that Rome kept the practice. Pliny admires their waterworks and art. Vitruvius codifies their temple plans. Late compilers quote their discipline in scraps. But the story does not end there. Beneath bias and myth, the objects speak, and they show a society rich and layered. Priests read the sky and the split of a liver. Prophets named Tagus and Vigoya appear in lore. Books once held their law and signs of fate. Guilds of makers push technique forward. Roof tiles and antifix molds flow from kilns. The scale looks almost industrial for its age. Ritual and rule pair with wealth and war. Armies guard trade routes and farmed plains. Yet the tomb art loves joy more than battle. And this is where everything changes. Power shifts on the sea and on the roads. Enemies press from two sides at once. A fleet from Syracuse meets them off Cumae. In 474 BCE the sea favors the Greeks. Etruscan reach in Campania snaps back. To the north, Celts begin to surge south. Old borders turn to front lines in the fog. Towns brace behind walls and ravines. To the south, Rome grows on the Tiber. It watches, copies, and then contests. Exchange tilts into rivalry and siege. Livy sets a stark scene at Veii. He tells of a siege that drags for 10 years. In 396 BCE the city falls to Rome. The fall more than a lost gate. It marks a break in regional power. It chills allies and opens the way inland. Through the 4th and 3rd centuries BCE, pressure rises. Battles, alliances, and imposed treaties bind. The League of Cities cannot act as one. Some stand with Samnites against Rome. Some make terms, hoping to keep their rights. Each choice tightens Rome's long grip. The wars grind down the proud facades. Harbors lose ships, and ports lose reach. Elites lose patrons and must recast status. Guilds keep working, but to new ends. Roman demand shapes what the workshops make. Tiles, tools, and bronzes feed a wider state. The social war comes much later. From 91 to 88 BCE, Italy fights for rights. Old allies seek the voice they lack. By 89 BCE, Rome grants citizenship here. The legal line disappears in a stroke. Identity moves from city to a wider name. The Etruscan tongue fades in public life. Latin carries law, trade, and rank. Parents choose the new sound for the next home. But the rights do not die. Haruspice walks into Roman temples. A priest from Etruria can still read doom. A Roman magistrate seeks an auspice. He looks to a sky mapped in an older way. He listens to a formula that crossed a border. Engineers keep digging deep drains. Podium temples face wide squares in Latium. The old plan is now a Roman habit. This is a paradox in slow motion. Political loss pairs with cultural spread. Disappearance wears the mask of survival. The silence grows in one register. No native histories, no Etruscan epics remain. But material voices keep talking from the soil. No one expected what happened next. Centuries later, the tomb doors open again. Paint, bronze, and clay pull them back to view. Stand in a cool tomb at Tarquinia. Light from a torch makes blues and reds swim. A feast eternal holds in breath and line. Here is the core of the riddle. Their art speaks clearly. Their language less so. We can parse endings, but not the full thought. Herodotus's voyage feels neat and grand, but the ground argues for local rise and mix. Dionysus sounds closer to what the soil says. Genetic signals nod to old roots in place, not to a tidal swap from the Anatolian coast. Exchange leaves style, not mass replacement. Now follow the city street in dust. It runs straight, with a trench cut beneath. This is 6th century BCE urban control. Rome grows near and learns the trick. Arches, drains, and podiums fit its needs. Pride of place becomes a toolkit for an empire. Then hear the part of the puzzle. The end is not a single dark date. It is a process of law, war, and habit. Veii falls in 396 BCE, and many follow. Citizenship comes in 89 BCE after a social storm. The tongue retreats, but the rights endure. The contradiction from the start now clears. They shaped Rome while losing their name. They survive as practice more than as polity. 3 tools read this quiet past well: objects, outside texts, and cautious genes. Each helps. None rules the field alone. Archaeology shows streets, drains, and craft. It proves early planning and metal skill. It charts a local arc with wide exchange. Texts add plot and bias in one breath. They must be sifted and said by context. They frame events, but not the heart. Genetics tests lineages with restraint. Signals need careful anchors in time. Trends, not headlines, are what they give. The lesson is simple and hard. To know a silent culture, stack the shards, and keep doubt as a faithful guide. Picture rain racing through a stone gutter. It vanishes under a street first drawn in the 6th. Above, a priest lifts a liver to a Roman sky. In a museum, 2 clay spouses still smile. On a linen strip, days of rites pace on. A bronze tablet guards a border in old words. The name Etruscan floats like smoke. The work holds like fired clay in the hand. Some legacies shout, and some whisper for ages. Welcome to Mysteria Mundi.